Hello, Set Free. Good Wednesday evening. Thank you for joining in with us. Man, I miss you guys. I really want to see your faces and be with you. But you know, this will pass soon and we'll have the victory and we'll all be back here together. I got a little thought I want to give you, a little Wednesday Bible thought. But first, I want to bring you up to date on some announcements, some things that you need to do. Tomorrow, I'll be sending you guys out a letter. Everybody should receive a letter from me that's just got some information in it about upcoming, how the services are going to be, upcoming services. And I thought this week, you guys never knew, the last time we were together, we received a debt reduction offering. So I'm going to put you some numbers in there and let you know how you did. You did tremendous, by the way. We appreciate everything that you do. Continue to watch the videos. We're in the video world now. The coronavirus means we're in the video world. So we'll continue to have Sundays videos. On Sundays, you'll continue to have the kids video, to have the youth video. We're going to begin to add something new here this next week or so. I will continue to do my Thursday thoughts like I've always done, but the elders are going to come in and you'll have some Bible thoughts, elders' thoughts, whatever you want to call it. In case of Therese, we'll call it a Therese thought. Ed, it's an Ed moment. I don't know, but anyway, they're gonna have some thoughts and some good teachings for you. Continue to watch. We'll continue on our social media to post the news updates. Try to keep you what's going on. This coming Sunday again, of course, will be online. So just continue to stay tuned in on whatever media you're getting us on. And also, you'll see on your screen now how to give. You can give online. You can give through text, or you can mail it in, and there is the information on the screen before you. If you're hearing a noise in the background, you may be hearing a noise in the background. They're up on the roof, repairing our roof, so they're banging and making noise. But you know what? I'm glad they're here repairing it, because we need this roof fixed. We don't want our building leaking, do we? Hey, I got a thought. I want to read you a thought. I was thinking, I don't know about you, but every day when I watch the news and the president and his people and the local news reporters, the governor's been out, it just kind of feels like all of a sudden everything's falling apart. I mean, it just feels like everything's falling apart. And so I got to thinking about the Apostle Paul and a place in his life where it looked like bad had turned to worse and everything was falling apart. And I'm talking about Paul on the ship. He's been taken to Rome, and the storm comes up, and y'all know the story. They lose the whole ship, and Paul and the men on pieces of wood float to the shore, and there they are. They finally float up to the shore, and they're clutching wood, and they're wet and they're cold, and the wind's blowing, and it's early evening, and they think, man, we made it through. We're on a piece of land here. They don't know where they're at, and maybe they're thinking, enough of this is enough. How could it get any worse? And they're hugged up around a fire, keeping warm. And Paul picks up some sticks to put on the fire, and a viper jumped out of the fire. I mean, bad goes to worse. A viper jumps out of the fire and hangs on his arm, and he has to sling him off. And he's thinking, how can this get any worse? Let me tell you something. There's always more to come. The devil always has a plan. He always tries to come at you with some more. But there's some things that I've learned when it seems like it's falling apart. And it's even in this story I'm going to talk to you about. Things aren't really falling apart because the devil's got victory over you. Sometimes it's God shifting things in our lives, in our nation. I just really believe that what we're going through now is shifting and aligning some things in our nation that we've needed to align and have shifted for a long time. But Paul shakes that snake off in the fire, and they said, no doubt this man is just a criminal, and even though he escaped the sea, God has put vengeance on him. But here's something that I've learned about when things are falling apart. If you're wise, if you've got an ear to hear, you can find providence in the middle of your problem. Because most of the time when a problem comes, it's birthing God's providence in your life. It's a funny thing. I went and looked up the word providence, and providence simply means this: the foresight of providing provision beforehand. Providence means the foresight of providing provision beforehand. So you know, the Lord orders our steps. The steps of a good man are ordered. And He has provided provision for us right in the middle of this economy collapsing. He has provided provision for us beforehand. So God's providence, sometimes things take a turn and you wonder what in the world is going on. It's just that He's put your providence here, and your providence here, and the whole time He's trying to get you here, and you having to go a different route than you thought. But if you'll follow God's providence in your life. And so here's the thing: when things are going crazy, you think, well, what's up? That's God's providence. I'm going to show you in this story. And here's another thing that you need to understand. When providence begins to manifest, it's not always about you. Sometimes God's providence in our life, things shift in our lives, and it's about others. And we're selfish, and we don't want to get uncomfortable ourselves for others. In this story, I'll pick it up. Paul had gathered sticks. He had threw it on the fire, and the snake had bitten him. And I'm in Acts 28, and verse 5 says he shook off the beast into the fire, and he felt no harm. Just shake some things off every once in a while. Verse 7 says, and in the same quarters were possessions of the chief man of the island, whose name was Publius. He received us and lodged us there 3 days courteously. And it came to pass that the father of Publius lay sick of a fever and of a bloody flux, to whom Paul entered in, prayed, laid his hands on him, and healed him. Then your Bible says, so when this was done, others also, the Greek says many, multiple people on this island of Malta. I want to think most of the whole island. Others also, which had diseases in the island, came and were healed. Paul preached the gospel. They had a great revival. It was all because things were falling apart. Things hadn't gone like Paul had planned. Do you know that it just may be that there's some things going on in our nation and in our lives to put us at a place that God can use us with people that never would have accepted us. And it just may be that this is God's providence for the church to be the church and for the church to be in position. They came to Joseph, his brothers did finally, after all those years of they sold him into slavery, and God had laid his hand on him and brought him up. Now he's second man to Pharaoh. And the brothers came in before Joseph, and they were freaked out, and they thought, oh God, he's going to kill us. And Joseph simply said, for am I not in the place of God? Was this not God's providence? All of this trouble was God's providence working. Then he looked at him and he said, you meant it for harm, but God meant it for good, to bring to pass as it is this day. So I don't understand why we're going through. This thing came on our world and on our nation like a snare. Nobody's seen it coming. It was a trap, and all of a sudden we caught it. I mean, it's like in just a few days' time we went from the strongest economy we've ever had to an economy that's almost completely destroyed. We don't know, but it just could be that God has placed some things in our path to where He can finally let the church be the salt that'll make everybody thirsty. And then here's another little thought I had in this story. When you begin to find providence in the middle of everything falling apart, and you understand, okay, maybe this is not as bad as I think it is. Maybe God is doing something here. I mean, after all things work together for good. All things, even this virus, even this mess that our nation's in, all things work together for the good of those who love God and are called according to His purpose. So God's working a providence in your purpose. But here's the next thing I want you to understand, because you really need to hear this right now with everything that we're going through. Providence brings provision. If providence means that God has beforehand had the foresight to provide provision for you, then providence brings provision. He's ordered your steps. Providence brings provision. Think about the Apostle Paul and the men that were with him on the ship. They land on this island. They have swam up, clinging to wood or whatever they could to get there. They're wet. They're cold. All they could do was shiver. At this point, Paul probably thought this ain't nothing but trouble. But just a little later, when he had a great revival and was healing people by the hundreds on the island, he understood that he was in the middle of God's providence. They're wet, they're cold, they're fresh out of the storm, they're vulnerable, they're weak. They didn't know where they was. They didn't know who they was with, how they got there. They'd got lost in the storm. They didn't know the people that were standing on the shore there waiting for them. They didn't know if they were going to kill them, imprison them, what was going to happen. And they swim up to the shore, and there's a fire there for them to warm by. And the people received them courteously. And they're standing there by that fire, and they're warming up. Providence brings provision. God, through his providence, will never lead you where he hasn't provided for you in advance. Did you hear what I just said? God will provide through his providence. He's able to do exceedingly abundantly all that you can ask or think. So here they are. They're right before everybody. They're cold, they're wet. And they find that in God's providence there's a nice warm fire. And then I want to read you the rest of this chapter. It says, after he prayed for the man's father and many people were getting healed, it says, they honored us with many honors. The word honored there, they honored us with many honors. They esteemed us in honor, and they gave us money and valuables. Now see, just a few minutes before, they had lost everything. The ship had gone down, all their possessions. They literally escaped with their lives. They had nothing. But because they was in the storm and they followed God's providence, the provision was provided in the providence. And now the whole island is giving them money and giving them valuables. It says, they gave us many honors. And when we departed, they laded us with, listen to this, such things as were necessary. I'm going to tell you something. I've never seen the righteous forsaken. I've never seen his seed begging for bread. And we're not going to beg for bread. And God's not going to forsake us. I don't know how long this thing's going to last. I'm believing and praying shorter than longer. But here's the one thing that I know. If we'll follow God's providence in our life, provision will always be in the house. It'll always be. At the same time that they threw Jonah over the side of the ship, God had prepared a big fish to catch him. He didn't drown, but he learned a valuable lesson in the belly of that fish's stomach. I mean, at the same time, there was 5,000 hungry men, plus women and children, and no food. God had one little boy with his lunch that his mama had packed there, 2 little pieces of fish and 5 loaves. And that was God's providence. God provided. So here's what I come by to tell you. Listen to what I'm telling you right now. God will not allow hell's problems without heaven's provision. Say it again. God will not allow hell's problems in your life without heaven's provision manifesting. So, hey, be happy. You're going to make it. You're going to get through this. Understand the providence of God. The providence of God promises that in his foresight, he has provided for you. And understand that if you're in his providence, it brings provision. People will receive you. People will be kind to you. People will give to you. It's going to work out. He said, I've never seen the righteous forsaken, the seed begging for bread. We're going to be okay. We're going to be all right. You're going to get through this. This season will pass, and pretty soon, you know, we'll be back to normal. I don't think we'll be back to normal. I think we'll be blessed beyond what we've ever been blessed. I love you. Tomorrow morning will be, tomorrow at 12 will be Thursday's thought. Don't forget to turn in Sunday at 10 and watch the praise and worship, the preaching, the youth, the children's church. It's all going to be there. It's all going to be good. Look for your letter in the mail. I'm going to be sending it out to you tomorrow. God bless you. I love you.